this man who he was 17 at the time, believes that he participated in this via CIA directive, and that a god named Natasha, I think, was ordering him to commit this shooting. So we are the Arms Attorneys. Today we are talking about the recent verdict in the civil lawsuit stemming out of the Santa Fe High School shooting. We're going to talk about who the parties of that lawsuit were, what happened, and what we think this means for mass shooting suits to come. But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button.
And so this is kind of pre-disclaimer. Obviously, this is close to our hearts
Very
here.
close to home here.
Yeah, we live in Galveston County. Santa Fe, the city of Santa Fe, is located in Galveston County. We're friends with many of kind of the people who live in Santa Fe or involved in the community, and so we know that this is a sensitive topic, but it's important to talk about with regard to kind of negligent entrustment, negligent storage, and whether those concepts kind of have any merit or basis in common law, how it applies here. And, this is one of those things. I mean, I got an email blast moments after the verdict was handed down by a bunch of anti-gun groups. Guess what? I'm on their list because I'm monitoring the stuff that's going on.
It's infiltrated.
I wouldn't say that, but, if you got a Rick on your list, it's probably me. The thing that the common theme among all of these groups were justice wasn't served. And I don't, there's nothing that gets us back to making people whole. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people have a misconception with lawsuits that, hey, even if you win a lawsuit, you're made whole again. Lawsuit is a extreme remedy. It's a burn the house down remedy. And there's really no winners. So I don't know that regardless of what happened with this case that people would have been satisfied.
No. And I think let's talk about what's going on with the criminal case.
Yeah.
Because, and bear in mind, for most of these families of mass shooting victims, there is no criminal case because the killer is himself killed, either by turning the gun on himself or by law enforcement, first responders, sometimes good guys who have firearms there. That happens more often in non-gun-free zones. But so, there's no justice there either. But so, yeah, there is justice delayed here, and probably there will never be justice. So the 17-year-old has been determined by the state to be unfit to stand trial. And so he is sitting in a state mental hospital, which it's jail.
Prison, yeah, it's for all intents and purposes.
It's not cushy. It's not fun. It's not better than prison. I'll tell you that. And Richard and I worked in the system. We'll tell you that. But it's been 6 years. The chances that his competency is ever restored at this point are pretty darn low.
Yeah, and for just a little bit of explanation so that people kind of have an idea of what's going on, we have these two different standards when we look at, hey, trying a defendant. This is a person accused of criminal wrongdoing. The first one is insanity. That means that they were just lost total mental control at the time of the incident, and maybe they should not be held as culpable for their actions.
Right.
Okay, so that's not what we're dealing with here.
You've heard that, not guilty by reason of insanity.
So that, yeah, it's one thing.
Now, that sent you to a state mental hospital too, so that's not like getting acquitted. But.
And the second one is incompetency. And this comes from, our due process rights, that you have to be able to participate and assist in your defense. And if you basically do not have the mental capacity to understand the proceedings around you to assist with your defense, well, the courts, what they will do is they will try to get you to a level to where, hey, the bare minimum of what's going on so that, you can, your due process rights are protected. So this is where maybe you're not crazy at the time that it happened, but, you're not in a place to where you understand what's happening for the time of trial. And that pushes the trial off.
Right. Or maybe both. Maybe you were crazy at the time, you're still crazy, but you have to understand the proceedings against you. You have to be able to help your defense, help your attorney. And what we have here, and really we only learned this through the course of the civil trial, is this man who was 17 at the time, believes that he participated in this via CIA directive, and that a god named Natasha, I think, was ordering him to commit this shooting. So, if you think the government had you do a mass shooting, you don't understand why you're being prosecuted, right?
So that kind of sets off the criminal trial for a while.
Mhm.
So no justice on that front.
No justice.
But what we have here today is a civil trial, and there was three real involved parties here for our purposes. We have the shooter himself, his parents, and then a online ammunition seller.
Mhm.
And just by a little bit of way of background, the online ammunition seller, they reached some kind of settlement agreement about a year ago. So whatever liability that the jury handed down to them, they've already kind of limited their liability. They're
Mhm.
kind of stuck there. So really the question before us this week was, are his parents responsible for his actions? And this is why I think this video is important. This is I mean, shifting responsibility to anyone other than the attacker. Um, that seems to be a strategy to discourage gun ownership generally.
Yes.
And so it's kind of a dangerous thing in understanding how sensitive all this stuff is. I think it's important to talk
Yeah.
about.
And understanding that the families are, without blaming the families who brought this suit, because it is absolutely unimaginable to me what they are going through. But yes, I mean, this is not the first time. In fact, we saw those Crumbly parents in Michigan.
Yep.
Michigan,
Yep.
they were not just, I mean, sued civilly, they were prosecuted criminally
Yeah.
for the actions of their son, who then committed a shooting. We have civil suits against firearm manufacturers, just right and left, despite the fact that I actually think that the law should prevent that, but we're skirting around the PLCAA in ways that I would like someone to address at some point, but I'm not an appellate judge, so there's not a whole lot I can do about that right now. But this is, a another way again for I think the families to say, look, someone's got to pay, someone's got to be responsible, and we think in this instance it should be his parents. So, do you want to talk through the facts of what his parents did or didn't do?
Yeah. So the testimony we have at trial is that the 17-year-old, also not considered a child under
Mhm.
Texas law, he's considered an adult. It's not considered making a firearm accessible to a child. Gained access to some firearms. He had been searching diligently for, I think the testimony was 3 months
Yeah, several months.
in order to gain access to firearms. He eventually gained access to the firearms. I will say probably the worst fact against the parents were they didn't notice the guns were missing
Mhm.
for a period of time. But essentially, that's it. The parents had their guns stolen from them by their own child. It took them a very long time to locate a key to gain access to these things. And so the question becomes, did the parents fall below a standard of care? Were they negligent in their actions, and so as to make them liable for his actions?
Right. And the jury found no, that they were not. And you can I think we've even had disagreements in our own office here and talking to the people around us about how much responsibility parents have for the overt criminal actions of those little babies that they raised, right? And I think you hit 17, and I think to me there are big questions about how much control a parent really has at that point.
Yeah, well, especially if you have an intervening cause like a theft. If
Hmm.
he had fully had permission to go and access these things, I'm not saying that it would necessarily change my opinion on it, even because he's an independent, he's his own person. Um, but but committing a crime in order to gain access to the firearms and then transferring or shifting the blame to the parents, I think that's the nexus of control over there is just a little bit too tenuous.
It is. So, it is I mean, it's a tragic thing, but I don't know. Do you think the jury did the right thing?
Yeah,
I do too.
yeah, the jury did the right thing here, and
Well, because they said that the blame, right? I mean, I think the, and I'll say this and then I'll be wrong, but I think that the distribution was shooter 80% responsible, ammo seller 20% responsible, parent 0% responsible.
yep,
And okay, that sounds about right. But so they didn't check his age, right, when they shipped in the ammunition. I don't remember if we mentioned that before, but that's their level of responsibility there. That sounds about right to me. I mean, I think generally maybe high on the ammo sales because we're all responsible for our own actions. But
yeah. And so how does this work from here? Well, the plaintiffs in this case originally asking for is over $1 billion in damages. I think they landed a little around 300 million. So 80% of that to the shooter himself, 20% of that theoretically to the ammunition distributor. they've reached some kind of agreement to where their liability is limited, so it's not going to run them out of business, I imagine. But you see why I think it's important. We do not have any kind of duty under common law that would hold other people in it. And when you start kind of picking it apart and really looking at its core elements, I mean, it almost sounds like North Korea a little bit. Holding families responsible for the actions of other, completely capable of adults. We don't have that kind of stuff here. And I don't think that's something that we would want in the United States. And it's only a few steps away from burglar breaks into your house, goes, commits crime, hold gun owner responsible. I know that sounds crazy now. We've seen a lot of slippery slopes in our lifetime. That's kind of the path that it leads to. And so I think it's an important kind of step back, address the situation, looking for justice. It's not just throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the kind of path it leads us to is not ideal.
Right. So I think what should you be on alert for going forward? I mean, there will be a gigantic civil suit after every mass shooting event now.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of who gets included, because, I mean, plaintiffs' attorneys look at what juries are doing. I mean, that's in part what controls who gets included as defendants in their lawsuits, right? So sane jury verdicts, I think, ultimately help down the road. But juries are just people like us who are like, oh my gosh, these families have gone through an unimaginable tragedy, and they're not thinking 7 steps ahead about what this is going to do to the firearm industry or what have you. So not all jury verdicts are sane, right?
No, but from kind of our perspective and the folks that watch this channel, I mean, we want you to minimize your risk. So, what's the absolute minimum? Don't be negligent.
Yeah.
Even if a jury did a right thing here, it doesn't stop them from making the wrong decision in the future. If you take those steps to minimize your risk, well, maybe it saves some lives, one, but two, I mean, it reduces the target on your back as far as civil liability goes.
Right. Absolutely.
This is a tough discussion, but we had to have it because it's very important. We want to hear from you. Did the jury do the right thing in this case? And until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.